The Whisper and the Roar, the story of Prophet Isaiah. Have you ever felt utterly insignificant, like a tiny speck of dust in a vast, indifferent universe? Imagine feeling that, but also knowing you hold a message so vital, so earth-shattering, it could change the course of history. That, in essence, was the life of Isaiah. He wasn't a king, a warrior, or a wealthy merchant. He was a prophet, a whisper in the wind, but a whisper that roared with the voice of God. Isaiah lived in a time of opulent feasts and glittering palaces, a time when the kingdom of Judah seemed invincible. Kings like Uzziah and Jotham reigned, bringing prosperity and peace. The future looked bright, almost blindingly so, but beneath the surface, a darkness festered. A rot of complacency, of idolatry, of injustice. The people, drunk on their good fortune, had forgotten God. They feasted while the poor starved. They offered empty prayers, while their hearts remained cold. And so, in the year that King Uzziah died, a young Isaiah had an encounter that would forever alter his destiny. He saw the Lord high and lifted up, his train filling the temple. Seraphim, celestial beings of fire and light, sang praises. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Isaiah, overwhelmed by the sheer holiness of God, felt utterly unworthy. Woe is me, he cried. I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. But in that moment of despair, a seraph touched his lips with a burning coal, purifying him, cleansing him. And then came the question that would define his life. Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Isaiah, trembling but resolute, responded, Here am I. Send me. Thus began Isaiah's long and arduous journey as a prophet. He was tasked with delivering a message that many wouldn't want to hear. A message of warning, of repentance, of impending judgment. He spoke truth to power, challenging the kings, the priests, and the people. He warned of the Assyrian invasion, a looming threat that many dismissed as mere scaremongering. Imagine trying to convince a room full of celebrating partygoers that a fire is about to engulf their house. That was Isaiah's challenge. He used vivid imagery, powerful metaphors, and stark pronouncements. He spoke of a coming Messiah, a suffering servant who would bear the sins of the world. This was a radical concept, a complete departure from the prevailing notion of a conquering king. Some scoffed. Some questioned. But Isaiah persisted, driven by the unwavering conviction that he was speaking God's truth. Think of figures like Martin Luther King Jr., who challenged the status quo, speaking out against injustice despite facing immense opposition. Or consider Nelson Mandela, who spent decades in prison for his beliefs, yet emerged as a symbol of hope and reconciliation. Like these courageous individuals, Isaiah stood firm in his convictions, even when it meant facing ridicule, persecution, and even threats to his life. His prophecies weren't just about doom and gloom, though. Woven within the warnings were threads of hope, of restoration, of a future where justice and righteousness would prevail. He spoke of a time when the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and a little child shall lead them. He painted a picture of a world transformed, a world healed, a world reconciled to God. This duality, this interplay of judgment and hope, is what makes Isaiah's message so compelling, so enduring. But delivering these prophecies wasn't easy. He faced opposition at every turn. He was mocked, ignored, and even threatened. Imagine being the lone voice, crying in the wilderness, warning of an impending storm while everyone else basks in the sunshine. That takes courage. That takes unwavering faith. Consequently, Isaiah resorted to dramatic acts to drive home his message. He walked barefoot and naked for 3 years, symbolizing the coming captivity of Egypt and Ethiopia. He gave his sons symbolic names like "A remnant shall return," and "Swift is the plunder, speedy is the prey," turning his own family into living prophecies. These weren't mere publicity stunts. They were desperate attempts to awaken a slumbering nation. Now, some scholars debate the authorship of the entire book of Isaiah. They suggest that it might be the work of multiple authors, writing at different times. This is a fascinating area of study, and it raises important questions about how ancient texts were compiled and transmitted. However, regardless of who penned every single word, the core message of Isaiah remains powerful and relevant. So, what can we learn from Isaiah's story today? Perhaps the most important lesson is the importance of speaking truth to power, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's unpopular. Isaiah's life reminds us that we all have a voice, and that even the smallest whisper can make a difference. It teaches us that true courage isn't about physical strength or worldly power, but about standing up for what's right, even in the face of adversity. Furthermore, Isaiah's message of hope offers solace in a world often filled with darkness and despair. It reminds us that even in the midst of suffering and injustice, there is always the possibility of redemption, of renewal, of a brighter future. It encourages us to never give up hope, to never stop striving for a better world. Finally, Isaiah's story challenges us to examine our own lives, our own priorities, our own relationship with God. Are we living lives of integrity and compassion? Are we using our voices to speak out against injustice and oppression? Are we working towards a world where peace and righteousness prevail? The story of Isaiah isn't just a dusty tale from the ancient past. It's a living, breathing message that speaks to us across the centuries. It's a whisper in the wind, a whisper that roars with the voice of God, a whisper that calls us to be agents of change, to be beacons of hope, to be, like Isaiah, a voice in the wilderness, proclaiming the truth, no matter the cost. So listen closely. What is that whisper saying to you? What will your response be?